Call the special common council meeting to order. Roll call.
Marks.
Here.
Van Blarcom.
Here.
Thompson.
Here.
Leonard.
Here.
Lanham.
Here.
Manor.
Here.
Elkin.
Here. All right, the first the first agenda item is a building inspector contract with REM Inspecting. We did talk briefly about that at the last council meeting. We noted that there were some changes in the fee schedule. So we're bringing it back here, having it appropriately noticed that we'll be approving that contract tonight. And if I remember correctly, the conversation was there wasn't heartburn over, I think, Dan, it was a 5% increase over what the fees were based upon run rates and all the things. So I would entertain a motion.
Two things. Address needs to be changed. Dan, I think Dan's office is in town now, not out at 110th Avenue. And on page 2, the agreement says based on a 1-year term, and we've discussed that several different times that needs to be more than a 1-year. I think we do a 3-year for Waterman's sanitation. 2 or 3 years. Everything else applies. I mean, it's still a no fault type situation, so there is checks and balances on it. But I don't see any real need that we should waste a bunch of time every year going through this.
Right, well, if we were going to just move forward, but because there was a change to the contract, which is likely going to happen every year anyway, right? So, but
it can.
Hopefully not. Hopefully we don't have to see the extreme.
we see them go down next year, maybe.
But my concern with the contracts of any of these that we do is that A, waste a lot of time doing it, and B, if you're a small business and you need to make some kind of plan, a financial plan, you would like to at least have a couple years of stability on that instead of wondering on a 12-month basis whether you're going to be renewed. So
I'll be happy to adjust that any way you need me to adjust it as needed there. My mailing address is still the 110 1014 110th. That is our current. We don't have a mailbox at our office location.
okay.
So all of our mail does come to our quote unquote home office. We still have a home office
All right.
that we operate out of. So that is still a valid address.
I knew your office is in town now.
Yeah, but we try not to conflict with the mailing with the Christopherson Eye Clinic there.
So Rick, are you making a recommended change then
Yeah.
to a 2-year?
I at least a 2-year. I think, Waterman's, I believe, has a couple years at least, and I think it's just no more than fair to the vendor that we I mean, if it's a limited term type thing that you only need it for a year, that's one thing. But when this is going to be an ongoing situation, that helps any of the folks make a financial plan for them, for their business.
I mean, if it helps, we can make it a 2-year and say the prices are good for 2 years too, if that'll, settle that out too, so we don't have to come back next year for pricing and stuff too, so. If that
The
helps.
advantage of having a separate schedule is that you can address the schedule separately.
Yes.
So the contract is it's fine, and the schedule, if we have to, we can readdress it, so.
That- Understood.
Would suggest we do a 3-year.
3-year.
Yeah.
Yeah, just something. So like I said, when you go to the bank and say, well, what's your income going to be? You want to buy a new car and you say, well, I'm guaranteed this for 3 years anyway, or
Sure.
less.
I'll separate that schedule out and then adjust the term to 3 years. If that's acceptable, and then I'll get that over to Patty and Ben.
In that case, I would make a motion to accept this if that's with those,
Changed.
with that change.
I would second it.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
I
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
I'll get that over to you.
All right, the next item up is a hearing on possible revocation of the Class B retail intoxicating liquor and fermented malt beverage license of Farm Table Foundation Incorporated. So we'll need a motion and a second to go into a public hearing, and then we'll do a roll call after that.
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Okay, and a roll call?
Marks?
Here.
Van Blarcom?
Here.
Thompson?
Here.
Leonard? Lem?
Yes.
Manor?
Here.
Elkin?
Yes,
Okay, is there anyone here from, Paul, you have some comments, thoughts?
Don't mind, I'd just like to make some introductory statements, so the process going, so everybody understands what we're doing.
Okay.
Just to be clear, I'm Paul Mahler, I'm the city attorney, I represent the city. I do not represent the complainant, and I do not represent the license holder. And I am not what you would call a prosecutor in this case, because the city did not file the complaint. So this is a hearing for possible revocation of the liquor license. In this case, this is considered a quasi judicial hearing for this body. What that means is that you act as a fact finder. You also interpret the law. And then at the end, you make a decision, much like a judge would do in a court. So this is a little bit different than your normal council proceedings. The way the law works, and I guess I should ask, is anyone here representing the complainant? Anybody here for the license holder? Okay. That changes the scope a little bit. The law says if the license holder doesn't show up, then the council shall deem the facts in the complaint as true and act accordingly. In this case, we have both parties here. So in that case, both parties have the chance to speak. They can ask questions to the other. Any member of the council can ask questions to either one of them. Have a complaint in front of you, I'm assuming.
Yep.
That complaint was served. Police department, there's an affidavit of service on file. And putting that out there because this is a recorded proceeding and I want that.
Okay.
So I guess we can start. If the complainant has anything they want to add to their complaint. They're welcome to make a statement. You're not required to, but they're welcome to do that.
At this point, I don't have anything else to add. It would, depend on any questions that come up.
Okay, you can step up to the podium then. Yep.
Hello, Mayor and council people. I will tell you, it's the first time I've been here, so please excuse me. I'm a little bit nervous, okay? The first thing I want to tell you is, my name is Lynn Blomstrand. I represent Farm Table. I'm fortunate to be the interim executive director at this point. Farm Table, very loved by the community, brought a lot of business into this community and still continues to have people coming back asking when we're going to reopen. Members of the community ACC supported community, other community projects as well as our nonprofit education with our school, with our other education as much as we can with our low income. Give you a little bit of history, so I'm not keeping you here all night long. Farm Table was informed that Carrie, who is the owner, and RNH is the owner of the building that Farm Table was leased, that they wanted to sell it. Farm Table, in good faith, was negotiating with RNH to purchase the building. Now, during this time, we had all the confidence that we would be able to purchase it. We were led to believe we were going to be able to purchase it. We were served eviction papers. Once we were served these papers, Farm Table felt that we had to close down business. Unfortunately, we did close down business. They filed an eviction suit. Our last day of business was January 29th for the restaurant for selling the retail. In February, we did have an event as well that served liquor, food, non-alcoholic beverages as well. So during this time, we felt it was very abrupt that we had to close down. We did not know what our rights were at that time. We did not have legal counsel. We did end up having to go out and get legal counsel. We did have a countersuit against them after we were served the eviction papers. During that time, we were still negotiating with them. We, in good faith, the board, in good faith, were still negotiated and got the paperwork and they filed the claim. That's when the negotiations ended abruptly. We went to litigation, we went to mediation. We brought forward very strong offers to purchase the facility. During the litigation, Carrie, who is the owner of RNH, stated that in no way would she ever sell it to Farm Table. That ended all negotiations. And at the end of March, due to our settlement, we did leave the Farm Table building. So during this time of the litigation, we were unable to sell liquor because they placed that we could not take any personal items out of the facility. So having them say that we couldn't do it and we abandoned the liquor license is not correct. We had that no option at that point to utilize it because we were held up in the litigation. Let's see here. That being said, March would be, if we did 90 days from then, that would be the end of June. If we went with that as our 90 days, according to the 90-day rule. Farm Table does have the financial means to open up another business. The board meets approximately every 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks right now, trying to get the new plans together. What we're doing is we've viewed 3 possible building options within the city of Amory here. We're coming up with plans and budgets before we can make a final decision. As you know, the board has the fiduciary responsibility to spend these monies responsibly and not just jump into something because of a concern about not having a new place within a certain amount of time. It is a nonprofit and they have to make sure that they keep that responsibility to heart, take it to heart. Now, I personally did speak to a city member, asked about the license. My responsibility is to bring to the board their options. Okay, so what's their information? What do they have? One of which was, can we sell the liquor license? I was informed that that's not an option for Amory, that we can't do that here, which I understand. Okay, that was one of the many things I brought forward to the board. There's a lot of options. There was a lot of cities that actually came and requested Farm Table go there. Farm Table loves this community, is a part of this community, and instead wants to stay at this community. Now, a little bit of information about RNH, and I'm gonna feel RNH is not in Amory. Okay, so Resilient Northern Habitat is not in Amory. Carrie, the RNH owner, is in Ely, Minnesota, not even in Wisconsin. Okay. So they had to have an Amory resident do this, which unfortunately is Christine Dix. Now, the reason I'm saying unfortunately is not because of any bads about Christine, because I adore her to pieces. I'm going to tell you that right now. Her son, she's a part-time bookkeeper, I believe, with RNH. Her son was employed by Farm Table, and both of them are adored on Farm Table. So I want everybody to know that. My concern is, did she file this complaint because she was requested to? Because she was in fear of her employment? Or is she in fear of not having housing? Christine Dix, bless her heart, unfortunately had a fire in her home. She is presently at the owner Carrie's, one of her residents outside of Amory, and that's where she's living right now until they can get the fire stuff sorted out. Was she in fear of that? Was she in fear of not having somewhere to go to? Either way, I have to tell you, we adore her and we adore her son, and no matter what, they will always be dear at heart. Another item is RNH benefiting from a situation that they created. It kind of makes me think, did they go this direction knowing that they were going to benefit from it in one way or another? Let's talk about the sales license real quick. As stated, I was told I couldn't sell the license. Okay. As per the complaint, if you read the complaint, it says, RNH says, if you guys take it away, they want to apply for it. They don't have a business in there. They own the building. They can't sell that license with the building. I was told I can't. So that does not make any sense at this point. So then taking it away for that, it's counterintuitive. Okay. And last but not least, the other business. As you see, there's a lot of VFW people here. They're here for support. And the reason they're here for support, when Farm Table got their liquor license, the one that they were against, I guess you could say, arguing with, trying to get it from, was the VFW. Farm Table 100% supports the VFW having the liquor license if Farm Table does not have it. They're another nonprofit. They're Amory community members, not somebody in Ely, Minnesota, or somebody outside of Amory. They are Amory community. I feel that it's their right and that they're due this. If it goes that direction, I feel that they are due finally to get this license they waited many, many years to get. Did you have anything you wanted to say? Oh, he has to be called. I didn't know that, guys. See, I told you I'm new to this. He's here in support, so I didn't know if it was okay for him to say anything on behalf of that, or is that something that would be another time?
Well, we're not talking about where the liquor license is potentially going. This is only about a possible revocation.
Got it. Okay. Any questions you guys have for me?
What kind of a time frame do you have for potential other location?
We meet on the 23rd, and we're going to be bringing up 3 or 4 business plans. And with those business plans, we have to come up with a budget. Right now, if we're talking about the ones in town, those are the ones that we have to figure out the budget because we have to have some items done to it. 2 of the buildings are already okay for us to do basic. They will pass all of the inspections. However, the hopes are to get it into more of a commercial kitchen than just a small, we can only do little bits. There's a lot of things we have to make sure is that we can be licensed in these areas for, what's the word? Where you're gathering, because you have to make sure everything is set for the gathering. So there's a lot of these things that are taking the time, and that's where everything is falling right now.
The event that you mentioned in February, was that at the location that used to be the home of Farm Table, or where was that location?
It was Women's League of Voters, I believe is what it was called.
That was hosted by the Farm Table nonprofit?
Yes, well, another people hosted it. We did the event for them.
Okay. And what date was that? February what?
I'm gonna have to actually research that one. I apologize.
Okay. And alcohol was served at that event.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
sorry, that was kind of a,
And what was the date in March that that litigation was finalized? But that's such.
We were out on the
Get back
30th.
into the building again.
Yeah, we were out on the 30th, and we have to go check the exact date, but I think we had about 4 or 5 days from when they ended to when we were out.
And, but that was in March.
Yes, yeah, so it was 4 or 5 days from the 30th, about when litigation ended, yeah, when they closed.
March.
Of March, yes.
When did you actually stop operating as a restaurant?
The restaurant itself,
Yes.
29th is when we stopped doing retail and restaurant and alcohol, except for the event in February.
And the 29th of January?
Correct.
Or further questions for the complaint?
When you talk about locations outside of this city, how far outside are you looking at, or what potential?
I think that's irrelevant to the case that we're hearing right now, right, about revocation. Right?
Well, to a certain degree, but if we're 20 miles outside of Amory, that we really lose any control over that liquor license if it goes out.
away.
Even if
No,
we-
it can't go outside the city.
Yeah. So if they're outside the city limits, and we wouldn't have jurisdiction over that anymore.
No.
Yep, then we wouldn't have the liquor license. We would turn it back over if we were outside of the city.
So I think the only question is whether there's actually going to be a viable business in the foreseeable future to assign this. Because until that's in place, it won't be used.
Right, that is correct.
What do you anticipate a minimum and maximum timeframe from now until you would be operating?
Well, that's why I said at the end of June, because if you think about it, by the time if we were to purchase a building, think about how it takes to close. And then what we have to do to get the building up to where we can operate it. So that's where the concern is. But we have the funds, we can definitely do this. And we'll keep bringing people back in. If nothing else, we'll get them in until we get everything where it's supposed to be.
Do we now hear from anybody else?
You guys done any questions?
I don't have any more for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Procedurally, do we entertain questions from anyone else associated with the farm table, or?
Well, this is not a public hearing,
Okay,
but, either party can have witnesses testify for them if they want. But again, this is not who potentially could get the license.
right,
This is about the facts right now.
sure, okay.
I guess, Paul, since you're standing there, would have a question for you from a legal standpoint. If the Farm Table Foundation was in litigation during the time frame from February, whatever the date is, until March 30th, plus or minus 4 days, what does that interim period mean? Because if they're not even allowed in the building to do anything because of litigation, are we to take that into account?
Way the statute reads is that if it's not operating, or if the license holder refuses to operate for a period of 90 days, that's prima facie evidence that they've abandoned the license. And that's what you're looking at, is whether the license has been abandoned, because these are quota licenses, so they're a valuable commodity here. And the city does not want them sitting idly because they're going to be put to use. Now, what your statute or your ordinance also says is 163-17 is what we're looking at here. I don't know if you have that in front of you or not, but As the closing of the licensed premises for at least 90 days shall be prima facie evidence of the abandonment. Unless extended by the city council for up to 6 months. And I'm just taking a piece out of that section. So it does give you a little flexibility. To say there's. You know, extenuating circumstances here, you can look beyond 6 months. You don't have to. Or not, you can look beyond the 90 days. You don't have to. It's going to be your call whether you think it's been abandoned or not. If you think that they have a viable business that they're going to get into within a month or two or whatever, you know, you can give them some leeway if you want to. That's in your discretion, but again, that's your choice, and you have to look out for the good of the city and what this license is going to do. And if they do move, they'd have to apply to have it transferred to a new location. Not automatic either. Licenses are up at the end of June. So they'd have to reapply and have to look at it again, but hopefully that answers your question.
Oh, I'm gonna get my 2 cents worth. Right.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
So here's my thought. We're not losing any revenue other than possibly some sales tax, something on this. If it doesn't, if it's not open tomorrow, we're okay. The new license is what, $10,000? No?
Oh, that's only the reserve.
This is a existing.
Okay, but if it's revoked, the new one would go to somebody, then they have to pay $10,000, right? No?
Pizzeria holds the reserve. The new license would be 500 for the liquor and 100 for the beer.
Okay. So we're not talking about a big amount of revenue here to the city. I recognize both positions, but I think Farm Table has exhibited resiliency to be, except for this, you know, the building now, to actually be in business long enough to finally turn the corner, I think, and make a reasonable, I mean, it's not a startup per se. I don't see that there would be any advantage to the city whatsoever to declare that license revoked and then go through reissuing for a couple weeks, you know, I think given the explanation that they're looking for a place in the city of Amory. You know,
One thing that happens in that is because it's renewals June.
Yeah.
Is that we have an opportunity, if you extend it until then, when it's renewed, we have another opportunity to talk about it and see what, if any, progress has been made. If there's a viable plan in place. And I would highly encourage that would be brought forward if that was the case, in order to support renewal of a license.
yeah, I think we don't have to make a decision on this till what, the end of June? When
You guys will be acting on the renewals at the beginning of June, but yeah, they can't even apply for one yet because they don't have a premises. So it doesn't become void till June 30th or July 1st.
that and the complainant does not qualify for one because they don't have a business at this point in time. Anyway, just the building is for sale, right? Is that correct? Okay, so if somebody comes in and wants to sell donuts out of your shop, they don't need a liquor license, right? But
Can you step up to the podium, please?
My name is Michelle Roner, and I was on the board of directors for Farm Table since it started, and I resigned in December. And I am now listing the property for the owner, who is Carrie Winger. And I also work for her as her property manager for Resilient Northern Habitats. And I do know that since 2018, the plan was Farm Table was supposed to buy the building and she was going to retire. Unfortunately, that did not happen. The money wasn't placed away to go into an account to buy the building. She gave them notice on August 4th of 2022 and said that she was retiring and going to sell the building. They had first opportunity to purchase the building. She had given them 30 days to make a decision of, do you think you're gonna do it or not? And at the time, it was our board president was Peter Henry, her ex-husband. And kind of stalled out. They were behind in the rent. At that time in August, they were 4 months behind. So that kind of helped give her the preference of she needs to sell the building. And then decision wasn't made, and from what I was told, they were told they needed to vacate on December 31st of 2022, in which they held an event on New Year's Eve and had no intentions on moving out. So it's been a back and a forth. There's been a push and a pull for getting the answers as to what is going to happen with the building and when are they going to vacate the building. And then conversation must have happened between Peter and Carrie, and he abruptly closed the doors in January, knowing that his lease, then if he was going to follow the lease, it would go through the end of March 30th, it was done, and then it would not be renewed. So that's where they were in litigation, but the litigation never went as far as down to my level. I don't know what happened between them, other than it was just a push and a pull. So now the building is up for sale, and that is why she would like the liquor license to go with the building. We've had people offer to purchase the building. And at one time, we had to cut the security cameras in there because Peter would get a hold of the people who had looked at the building, 2 of which he has threatened. One is which he had told you, you'll never get that liquor license from me unless you give me $50,000. That is what we're up against, is dealing with that. So that is why we did the complaint and trying to get the liquor license so that people aren't threatened that they have to pay him, because we do know that it stays with the location. So they had the opportunity to purchase it and decided no, they weren't going to buy it. And then the offers that Peter did give Carrie were for what she paid for the buildings before all of the renovation, which was $325,000. I think the highest that I am aware of was $625,000. The building alone on tax roll records, a bare building is $919,600 is the value of the building. So she at least, she wants that. She's selling it for 1.2 million right now, everything included. So that's where we stand.
Without getting into the personalities, which I kind of suspect, which is no bearing on what we're deciding here, I'm still comfortable with waiting till at least until June. If we have to have a special meeting in the middle of June, so be it. I think we owe business that, and just because that license is listed to that location, whoever would buy that anyway has to apply. There's no guarantee that they will be able to, or they go through a background check too. Just because you can afford a building don't mean you get a liquor license.
Right.
So,
I do think that waiting until June gives both parties the opportunity to figure some stuff out, Farm Table, and figure out if they're going to be able to have a business plan in place, and whoever buys the building then could apply, because right now there's no one in there to apply.
Mm-hmm.
and since we don't have, since that liquor license may not be in use by June 1st, I don't see any issue to hold it up till the July meeting. If there's, we have to ratify the new licenses in June, but if it's not being used, what's to hold us, what's to prevent us from staying till the 1st of July? Seems to me that gives like 6 weeks now. You know, June 1st is pretty darn quick. They had 6 weeks, and I would think that should be adequate time to both, you know, either concrete, make your sale concrete or and make your financial situation better. So I'd make that a motion to.
I do feel, however, we owe it to the city and I think we owe it to the city to not be holding things up for something that's completely out of our control.
Correct.
I think waiting until the end of June does not make sense. I would prefer to give them a deadline to, I don't know, mid-June, so that if somebody does want to apply for it, they have the opportunity to apply and go jump through all the hoops that are necessary in order to perhaps have a license up and running by the 1st of July.
So 30 days, basically from now is what it would boil down to. 'Cause this is already sitting by the way for all the Norwegians.
Jen, I understand that. I mean, that's my opinion. I mean, I would love to see Farm Table continue to have the license and be able to operate in whatever location it is. However, I think we owe it to other members of the community who might perhaps want to hop on and get that license, to give them the opportunity to do such and have enough time to do so.
And Ben's kind of beholden to notice it too. So
Exactly.
He has to consider that too, so.
Yeah.
So like, basically, if it goes to the end of June, it expires, it's sort of a free for all. We could have like 10 applicants and then. And you guys pick this up again? Fine.
Yeah.
These two.
You guys have any other questions?
No.
No, thank you.
The timing of this is a little important.
Mhm.
The license is gonna end at the end of June.
Oh.
Now, if it's their intent to apply to extend that to next year, you know, the city would have to issue a notice of intent not to renew. And then give the reason would be abandonment or, you know, premises or whatever, but Ben would have to send out that notice sometime in June. So they would have the option to, you know, come in again and have a similar hearing about whether or not it's going to be renewed as opposed to abandoned. Now, the one drawback for them, if the council determines that they want to revoke it, they can't apply, Farm Table Foundation couldn't apply for another license for a year. So that was just some information for you to consider, but you can certainly, it's in your prerogative to say, I'm going to withhold judgment here for 30 days and have this hearing reconvene the middle of June if you want to.
But I think going to the ordinance of the 90-day abandonment, I don't see the abandonment and they're starting until March 30th. When litigation was and the lease was through March 30th. And even if they weren't operating between February, whatever date that is, February and March, we're still
Right.
in that window of the 90 days. So
Correct.
So with what Paul said, I mean, we could extend it up to 6 months as well. I was thinking, when I said middle of June, I was thinking that it was imperative to have this done before June 30th for issuing of the license. However, if we were to extend it even beyond that, perhaps
They still have to
they would
reapply.
have to reapply. I understand that.
Timing is messed up.
Okay.
So
our max is extending it through June 30th. Right, because that's when a renewal is required. Right. Yep.
Background checks and there's all these things.
Yep.
That Ben will have to perform. with-
So if they get it renewed in June. And things are still not up, like if we extend our decision out longer, say like 6 months. And it gets abandoned, like in the middle of the year, can people come and apply then, or does it just sit vacant? Until June when we redo all of it again?
Yeah, if we have an open license, anybody can apply at any time. I just have to notice it. It's not a big deal, really.
But am I understanding correctly that it, even if we extended it for 6 months, they still in June have to come and
Yes.
file renewal?
Currently, they wouldn't be able to apply. You have to have a
Right.
premise.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yep.
Mhm.
So there's a motion on the floor made by Rick. Do you want to restate what your motion
I'd like
was?
to extend this hearing to the committee as a whole meeting in June.
I would second that.
And I do a roll call, yes? Roll call, yeah,
As soon as I get done right.
okay,
Marks,
Yes.
Van Blaricom,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Lanham,
Yes.
Banner,
Yes.
Elkin.
Yes.
That doesn't vote, does it? I don't think it
No.
does.
no, should not.
I didn't think so.
No.
Okay. So that concludes then order number 2 or point number 2. So point number 3 is adjournment.
Don't we have to close the hearing?
Oh, yes, yes, so make a motion to.
Make a-
Close the hearing.
Make a motion to close the hearing.
I second it.
Any further, a roll call?
Marks,
Yes.
Van Blaricom,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Lanham,
Yes.
Banner,
Yes.
Elkin.
Yes.
Ask you, Chad. Leonard?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, now I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make that motion.
For a second,
Second.
all those in favor? Opposed? All right, we're adjourned.